And I think in terms of what people can sort of expect or what people should prepare for, I think, yeah, as I said earlier, that idea of everything kind of moving sideways with these occasional pumps that kind of fizzle out fairly quickly. I think as well, it's just people should be ready for everything to kind of take longer than you would expect it to. But I think sentiment is going to be a big one as well. So things like the fear and greed index. I mean, we've got there's Ben's wonderful tool as well that he has on Into the Cryptoverse. You know, his social indicator. Which, Ben, I think you've talked about that on our news show before, haven't you? It's you know, this idea of what are people, you know, how are people engaging with crypto? What are they watching? You know, are they on YouTube? Are they on Twitter? What's the, you know, what is crypto Twitter like at any given time? You know, at the moment, on a sort of day-to-day basis, it can be a bit of a graveyard, but you can, you know, that's something to really watch when that space kind of comes alive again. And as content creators, of course, we can, you know, we see that in real time. We see that in our viewing figures, in our subscription figures, all this sort of thing. So I think, yeah, it'll be macro and sentiment as far as that's what I'm going to be looking out for. You know, just how are people feeling about it? What is the sense of optimism or pessimism out there? I think. But yeah, a huge focus on macro and what comes out of the Fed, certainly. Early-ish, yeah. I discovered it in kind of late 2013, and then sort of went in very, very tentatively, sort of early 2014. So as the dust was kind of settling from Mt. Gox, that was when I took my first baby steps into buying Bitcoin. I mean, I've always been about hope for the best, expect the worst. That's how I've lived my whole life, and it's generally served me pretty well. Yeah, no, Ben, I take your point, and I think there's a lot to, you know, there's a lot to look out for with what we see from the Fed and what you know, what decisions they make. And as you say, yeah, that switch to QE. If it happens, yeah, yes. that could be the indication that something's already gone seriously wrong. And things like, I mean, I'm kind of keeping an eye on things like the housing market and the stock market as well, because we've obviously got that correlation between stocks and crypto, and we've yet to see the stock market take that next leg lower, which I think is what, you know, a lot of people seem to be expecting. So I'm kind of preparing myself for that, and for, you know, quite possibly for a crisis in housing as well. And yeah, I'm eyeing up sort of further lows as a result of that, and possibly because of other kind of crypto specific factors, which I think we've touched on before. And I think in terms of what people can sort of expect or what people should prepare for, I think, yeah, as I said earlier, that idea of everything kind of moving sideways with these occasional pumps that kind of fizzle out fairly quickly. I think as well, it's just people should be ready for everything to kind of take longer than you would expect it to. I think we'll see, you know, we'll have some good news for various projects. We'll have hopefully some indications that the macro situation is improving, and it'll be that sort of sense of excitement. It's like, oh, maybe we've turned the corner, and perhaps we have, but I still think that will take a while to play out in the markets. It'll take a while for investors to be kind of tempted back to the table, especially for risk assets like crypto. So yeah. I think you know, patience is going to be such a key virtue to have over the next 12 months at least. Nothing is going to happen as we would like it. Nothing is going to be as quick. It's going to be a kind of slow grind a lot of the time. In answer to your question, Rob, you know, these things that we can't control, and going back to Avalanche and Amazon, I mean, yeah, a while ago this would have been rocket fuel probably for the whole market, really. And I think Amazon is one of those companies that just keeps getting talked about in terms of, in terms of kind of wishful thinking, or in terms of when is Amazon going to go into crypto? Wouldn't that be one of the great factors that really drive a massive rally, is that if the Amazon committed to crypto, and here they are via AWS. And I think there's a good quote in that article somewhere. I can't quote it verbatim, but I think the guy from AWS says something along the lines of, crypto is inevitable. We know that it's the future, and we're getting in now. I think that's sort of there we are. Web3 and blockchain is inevitable. And I mean, for me, this is exactly the sort of thing that I want to see in a bear market. This is exactly the sort of partnership, the sort of development that we should be looking out for, and that should be going on at times like this. And I mean, this one in particular hasn't really flown under the radar. I think the crypto community has kind of picked up on it pretty well, and obviously that's been reflected in Avalanche's price.
Right.
But there are going to be tons of announcements, and maybe not of this kind of magnitude, but just so many of so much of this kind of thing happening over the next 12 months. And again, that's what makes me excited. That's what kind of exhilarates me about the coming year. It's going to be, what are these projects going to do? Who are they going to partner with? What are these big companies that are going to take their first steps into crypto? Because it just doesn't seem that kind of bearish sentiment, or that idea that crypto's dead in the water, that's not the message that I'm getting from so many of these big companies. They know, and to go back to that quote, it's inevitable. And I think the guys at the top of those companies know it, and they're positioning themselves accordingly. And in terms of what, going back once again to the Fed and what Ben was saying about rates coming down and all this sort of stuff, I think what'll be quite interesting to see, I think, is if inflation does come down, if we keep seeing falls, because that was quite a big fall in the CPI today, wasn't it? It came in 6.5, which was expectations. That was down from 7.2. Am I right in that? That's
somewhere
from the previous month. It's quite a big drop, isn't it? And I mean, that is a very encouraging sign. I would say, of course, that Jerome has been pretty adamant that they are, that they're staying the course. I mean, again, I think that's the phrase that he's used, or he uses pretty much every press conference he does now. The Fed is going to stay the course on inflation and interest rates. But what I'll be really interested to see, especially if we get more falls in the CPI, especially if we get more evidence that inflation's going down, I'm very interested to see what the kind of more dovish voices on the FOMC have to say, because I know that there is a kind of, from going through these minutes every time they come out, I know that there is a kind of core of dovish voices there in that meeting every month or whenever it is. And I'll be interested to see whether they kind of grow in strength, grow in confidence, whether they're able to kind of influence the thinking of the others, because I know that Jerome is very hawkish. I think, the majority of them, I think, are pretty hawkish. They follow Jerome's lead. And again, as we've discussed before, he's determined that he's not going to be the guy who, kind of lets inflation slip through his fingers, if you like. So I think it'd be very interesting to see how other people, especially the dovish ones in the FOMC, react to future CPI prints.